SK Hynix seeks $29 billion Nasdaq listing for AI chips. U.S. investors now price SK Hynix's HBM output directly against NVIDIA's next tape-out schedule. The listing currency lets the company snap up advanced packaging capacity in Arizona before any competitor bids. That capacity addition lands exactly when hyperscalers start renegotiating multi-year memory contracts. Expect contract ASPs to drop 18% once the first line reaches volume. Micron has no choice but to accelerate its own U.S. expansion or watch share erode in the enterprise segment by early 2027. Getty Images' OpenAI deal sends stock surging 200%. Buried in the contract is a data licensing clause that gives OpenAI perpetual training rights on Getty's full archive. The stock pop masks how quickly that changes the economics for every other visual asset marketplace. The display rights were always table stakes. The training rights decide who survives the next round of model scaling. Shutterstock must accept identical terms or watch its library get routed around in the next model release. Most enterprise buyers will simply default to whatever OpenAI surfaces first. Samsung deploys ChatGPT Enterprise to 125 Ketesedget. Inside Samsung now trains a model that already sits inside Microsoft Office. That data flow gives OpenAI line of sight into component decisions long before they reach the supply chain. Google loses its default position inside the largest Android OEM at the exact moment it needs usage signals to improve Gemini. Watch the Gemini adoption numbers inside Samsung's global sales teams over the next 2 quarters. The next negotiation round on Android licensing just got materially harder. Nadella publicly challenges OpenAI and Anthropic. Nadella's audience sits in Brussels and Washington, not San Francisco. The warning signals that Microsoft intends to own more of the model layer itself once current contracts roll off. Expect the company to surface its own frontier model family inside Azure before the end of 2026, starting with select enterprise customers. That move caps OpenAI's upside and gives Microsoft leverage in every renewal. OpenAI must now match the infrastructure spend or accept a smaller seat at the table. Mead Canaclid Ultimate Contract Original. Complergio si disquelven apira frubbled in Grec of Condraspis Philippinidatum Piblant. UCOM's role also hints at supply chain leverage that could sideline smaller cloud providers from similar optimizations. Enterprise teams running mixed workloads will feel the margin pressure first when renewal talks begin. Pilot programs at large logistics firms will test whether the combined system reduces human intervention rates below current thresholds by more than half. Pilot programs at large logistics firms will test whether the combined system reduces human intervention rates below current thresholds by more than half. Deployment programs need defer to until Delancey middle website endgaming, but other firms might start meeting 6-2 views. North time is Merson, Datriculpakes. Curriculum providers gain leverage to embed non-generative analytics instead of full-generation features. The knock-on effect appears when national assessments show stagnant writing scores, despite increased device budgets in secondary grades. Gemini 3.5 Pro, still missing as June deadline passes. Internal deadlines slipping into the second half hands OpenAI another full quarter of uncontested enterprise conversations. Procurement teams hate uncertainty, so they are shifting budgets toward models already in production. Expect Google Cloud's attach rate on Gemini to drop as soon as Q3, once alternative contracts get signed. The real cost shows up in lost data flywheels, not just missed launch dates. This forces OpenAI to double down on its enterprise sales team before Google recovers. Micron Outlook revives AI memory chip trade. Strong sales guidance tells us less about demand than about who controls the remaining HBM supply. Samsung and SK Hynix now face allocation pressure from every major cloud provider at once. Expect the second-order effect to appear in longer lead times for non-AI DRAMist, squeezing margins at PC and smartphone makers through the end of next year. Micron just made the capacity crunch impossible to ignore. This forces memory buyers to sign longer contracts or risk spot shortages by Q2. FT Anthropic's risk focus may have triggered ban. The frequency count itself is the sideshow. The buried story is how that language supplied regulators with pre-written talking points for the ban. Banks now face extra scrutiny on every Anthropic pilot, lengthening sales cycles by months. Anthropic must either soften its public stance on risk or move regulated workloads to competitors. The shift shows up in win rates by Q4. Legal teams at every financial services customer are already revisiting their model selection criteria ahead of next year's budget cycle. A 16Z sees SpaceX path to AI computing in space. Placing inference clusters in orbit changes the power cost curve by an order of magnitude inside 18 months. AWS and Azure must now decide whether to secure launch capacity or watch enterprise GPU margins erode against a lower-cost alternative. The second-order effect hits latency-sensitive applications first, pushing more workloads toward edge models that avoid space backhaul entirely. Terrestrial providers now carry a new variable in capacity planning. This forces large AI customers to factor orbital latency into roadmaps.